Here's AOC in Colorado at one of these Sanders AOC events.
And oligarchs will back his campaigns and bankroll those of his allies. They scratch his back and he scratches theirs. And all of us are left behind.
So that person shouted, "Bring back the guillotine." One other person this week who seems to be trying to fill the vacuum is someone who was moved from relative obscurity to national prominence. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, who was put on the ticket with Kamala Harris when she ascended after Joe Biden stepped aside under pressure. And he's been making the rounds, doing all sorts of media appearances and seemingly positioning to be considered as someone who might run for president in 2028. Here is number 10, Sam Donald Trump today in the Oval Office talking about his view of Tim Walz.
Walz is now saying about Trump supporters, and forgive me, I'm just reading a quote from Tim Walz. I think I could kick most of their ass.
Oh boy, he'd be in trouble.
Is there any way to know?
Well, he's a loser. Yeah, I mean, he's a loser. He lost an election. He played a part. You know, usually a vice president doesn't play a part, they say. I think Tim played a part. I think he was so bad that he hurt her. But she hurt herself, and Joe hurt them both. They didn't have a great group, but I would probably put him at the bottom of the group.
So, Eli, what do you think of the vacuum that exists now, and what do you think of the various people who are trying to fill it?
Well, I defer on the. I mean, you're one of the best journalists in the world on politics, but my kind of rule of thumb is, I don't know. I don't think we even know who the next Democrat's going to be at this point. I mean, we know some people who are going to put their hat in the ring, like a Josh Shapiro or somebody like that, but what we're going to have to sort of see how this goes, and it depends on what happens with the economy, and it depends on where voters are and what happens in the midterms, because on the one hand, everybody seems to agree in the political class, including so many liberals now, we got to drop this woke stuff. We got to drop, you know, trans, trans kids in sports and things like that. Fine, but what's your positive? Like, okay, fine, you're moving away from that. Great. But what are you gonna? What are you gonna say about the kind of new economic nationalism, the emphasis on tariffs? And it's possible that the tariffs are going to be an economic disaster, and inflation is going to get worse, and the economy is going to get worse. So at that point, I think that we have to look at what the economy is going to look like to figure out what kind of Democrat people are going to want. If we are in free fall, voters might want a familiar face in some ways, a steady hand. If they see that Trump's the chaos. If things are better than expected, then maybe you're going to see the party become Trumpier in some ways, in that there'll be more populist, but populist from the left. But I just think it's way too soon to tell.